Yeah, I didn't do that. So, Alex, yeah. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for being guinea pigs. Um, um, and yeah, I just sort of want to do see if it works. I want to drive more sort of interaction with the group, and if that has a knock-on effect with the Old Boys Association, that's cool. Um, and I just thought, how can I drive more sort of interaction? And you look at Graham Norton, and you might not like his politics, or you might like his politics, but Joe Rogan, they just have very chilled, relaxed, natural sort of conversations. And I want to sort of have it's cross-generational, so people can listen and hear how things were the same or different, depending on when they went to the college. So I just want to put us into the framework of when you guys were removed, which was 1982, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Get an abacus out.
Calculated in 86, so yeah, I think that would be right.
Okay, so what was the big sporting event of that year? Do you remember? Internationally.
We didn't play international sport.
No, but
we were bad.
The big, but the whole world.
So I mean, for me, what we typically used to watch, we used to get the FA Cup, and we used to get Wimbledon that we used to watch. But I mean, I guess would there have been an Olympics, LA Olympics,
closed football World Cup, soccer World Cup,
football World Cup, yeah.
And final.
I mean, I would have had no interest or sort of any idea of what was going on there.
Yeah. Well, it was Italy 3, Brazil 2, just so you know.
Oh, there you go. No, we watched the tennis.
That was a long time ago when Italy were winning World Cups.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'm going to make you feel really old in a minute. So what was the top album of the year globally?
Could have been Michael Jackson.
That or Dexy's Midnight Runners or something.
It was Jackson. Which one?
Thriller.
100%. 100%. I always thought it was later. I didn't realize it was so.
Yeah,
early.
I would have. If you said to me when did Thriller come out, I probably would have said 84, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I would have said. 84, 85.
Yeah.
What was the number one movie?
The Breakfast Club.
I think that came out a little bit later. It was actually E.T.
E.T.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Followed by Tootsie.
Dustin
Hoffman.
Officer and a Gentleman, and one of our favorites, because it was banned and we had to watch bootleg, Porky's.
Right.
Porky's was number 5.
Wow.
I know. And so there's a couple of people who were born in the year you were in remove, who are now retired rugby players. Ricky January, and one of our all-time greats, Farid Dupria.
Was born in 82.
82. Is that caca?
John, let's get the Zimmers away. That's about what we're down to these days.
Well, I think the CEO of the company that I work for was born in 82.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
anything big world that you remember, that world news from that year that you might have a recollection?
No. I mean, it was a different time, Paul. We didn't.
Yeah, we didn't follow the news. I'm just.
We weren't connected.
Yeah, and I'm going to come on to that. I am going to come on to that. So the Falklands War.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, we heard of that.
Brezhnev died.
Yeah.
Okay. And one that I was really surprised at was Canada got their full independence in 82.
You kidding me? Really?
Yeah, I thought that was like 40 or 20 or something.
Who, from the States?
No, no, they swapped it from the UK to the States.
Is it? They haven't got independence from the States yet.
No.
They're about to go into trouble.
They're about to get tariffs on them.
Yeah. So who won the Curry Cup that year?
Transvaal.
It was 82, either Province or the Bulls.
Yeah, it was Western Province.
Yeah, Province.
Yeah.
Donnie Gerber still playing in those days.
Yeah, I watched
the video of him. Eastern Province, yeah.
Yeah, he was Eastern Province. Fuck, he was good.
Duplessis brothers and
Potent.
those.
So, so just put you guys into that sort of frame, that time frame. And again, I'll come on to the fact that we were totally insulated, both just as teenagers, not giving a shit about the outside world, and by the place that South Africa was, and the fact that we were at St. John's. But were any of you lifers at St. John's, or did you come in and remove?
I was.
Johnny was. I came into St. John's when I was in Standard 4, so I did 2 years of prep.
Yeah.
And then the rest in college.
Yeah, so I was there from grade 1. Mrs. Fordry was my grade 2 teacher.
How is it?
Yeah.
And that's why he became Wolfsian.
Yeah. Could have been. Hey? Evidently, I was Mrs. Fordry's favorite pupil of all time. So
Wow.
I think it was Paddy Murphy told me. He said, no, he went for an interview with Florence because she was the headmistress. And she she was asking him about me, and she remembered me. I think I was one of those problem children. I used to steal the guys' caps, and I was threatened with caning in grade 2 because anyway, she took me under a rather ample wing and put me on the straight and narrow. So
John, did you like the canings? Is that why you stole the caps?
no, geez, in the prep school, in the pre-prep, it
Ooh.
was the fear of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be sent up to the prep school for discipline was unheard of.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
I
so I
was
was there
going
for 12 years.
I was going to talk mostly about the college, but because that was my experience. But I actually should change my focus and think a little bit, if I do any more of these, about people who were in the prep. But I suppose the most formative years that we had were in the college. I would posit.
Yeah.
But
Look,
what were your memories of remove? What were your memories of being the big cheese when you're in standard 4 and
Yeah, so Paul, I was just going to say that the prep and college were vastly different experiences because in the prep school you weren't sort of channeled, and you could basically be a generalist, and you played sport. You played also in those days in the prep. They went on the English year system. So because I was born in April, I played sport with the guys in the year below me. The Chris Keys and the Kim Walmsley Crowns and that sort of group, because they were older in their years. So it went sort of from July to July, July to June. So I didn't play sport with the Chris Randalls. Bones, I mean, when's your birthday? You would have been
January. So you didn't play sport with us.
Yeah.
So I was
So
older guy, and I was young
yeah,
for the old.
yeah. So you played a year up, but when you got to the college, you then played in your year group, and typically your mates became the guys you played. I mean, obviously, if you were a sportsman, your mates were the guys you played sports with. So yeah, I mean, we had a really strong sporting year,
Very strong. All round.
and yeah, all round. But in rugby, we're unbeaten, and I think the last game of our season was against Kes, and we rated ourselves, and I think we got 35 duck against us.
Yeah, but those
So
they were already 18 years old at that time in remove.
the Kes boys, yeah.
And when we
But I
were
mean,
24.
Yeah, and you're not joking.
I'm not. Some of the Oaks were in the 20s in matric.
But I mean, also the arrogance, Paul. We thought we were so good, and the year group ahead of us weren't that good at sport. And so our under 13As, we thought we could take the under 14As on.
Yeah.
And we played them at Gaudy Day.
Yeah.
And we got fucked up.
Is it?
Blank Mulroy headbutted me. I was playing lock at that stage. He headbutted me in the first scrum with my head through. Oh, and that was also a disaster.
We're going to clap this light either.
But I mean, they would never do that. Can you imagine in this day and age? You know, they don't allow 16 or 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds to play in first team rugby.
Oh, really?
Too
Yeah,
small.
and I was my first rugby game. I was 15, and the prop Pete Big John from Parktown was 20.
Yeah.
Sure. That's
No,
a massive
not
difference. Huh?
joking. Paul, I'm
Yeah,
serious. It was a joke. Like all those schools, even the JP Oaks, they were 2, 3, 4 years older in our standard. It was nuts.
I remember the Oaks from the Puras from what was it school?
Atla.
Highlands.
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 They had like 5 o'clock shadow at 9 o'clock in the morning
Yeah,
playing against them
Oh,
in standard 7.
they'd go and huddle with their wife and kids at half time.
But you know what was funny was they used to intimidate us in standard 6 and 7. But then
yeah.
a lot of them stopped growing. You know, I don't know if it's what genetics it is, but the Portuguese tended to be more mature at an early age, but then stop, and then we just pumped them in standard 9 in matric.
Yeah. It was interesting. And we also caught up. I mean, the Oaks started to grow finally,
Yeah.
except for John. John finished matric at the same height that he was in removed, basically.
Yeah, but not the same width.
Grown anymore.
So, Pete, what's bones? Is that because you're a slim oak? Where's
I
that
was
history come from?
skinny, boy. If
I
Herx
remember.
was on here, Herx made me look like muscle bound. I'm sorry he didn't join our call because he was fantastic. But yeah, it was because I was literally just skin and bones.
I remember watching you high jump when you were in matric, and
Yeah, he was a good high
he was
jumper.
very good at high jumper. He was just effortless. So.
Squash was my thing. I never practiced any of the sports and the athletics, really. I just stuck to squash ultimately. That was my thing.
Yeah. Now, when you went into the college, what was your sort of experience of it? Well, which house are you in, Mac?
Hill.
Hill House.
Hill. I'm sorry. So Pete, and I were
Yeah,
both in
that's
Nash.
Nash, guys.
Yeah, the
So
legends.
were there other houses other than Nash? You'd never
Nah,
guess.
well, none that had any trophies that we know of. I think
Yeah,
we had them all.
Yeah, because you stole them.
yeah, pretty much.
Only the ones that weren't competing anymore, like Bisley. The house that won it kept the Bisley Cup, so we had to go get it and put it in our cabinet, probably.
I remember, yeah, I did that with the Oaks when I was in matric. You went and nicked other houses, one or two trophies. But yeah, there was definitely, you could probably talk to that actually at some point, but there was definitely a sort of an arrogance about the Nash boys.
No.
Yeah, don't know what, not in a bad way, but just we thought we were the bee's knees, and I'm sure that we were considered assholes by the other houses, but
Yep.
we were happy with that. So when you got into the college, were you a boarder, Pete?
Yeah, I was a boarder right through for 7 years.
So there must have been some interesting times in that first year, huh? Back then.
Yeah, I mean, my memory of it is it wasn't a really the matrics at the time weren't very nice human beings. I mean, that was still right at the end of like the fagging time where the guys
Yeah,
would cane the crap out of you and bully you mercilessly. And there's a couple of matric oaks that were in our year that if I ever meet in life, I'd like to give them a little chat,
yeah,
personal chat.
yeah,
That took great relish in bullying the crap out of me. And it didn't help me because my brother was 2 years ahead of me. So, I was picked on quite hard by quite a few oaks. It didn't make life easy for me. And there were some really, really nasty individuals. But I just learned to navigate and stay the hell away from those ones and
yeah,
just try and hide away when they were around,
yeah.
Who was your head of house, Pete?
Anthony Morey, he was a nice guy.
Uh,
But then there were a
yeah.
couple of others, like a Nicholas Gutentag, wherever he is in the world.
I think
He was,
let's not mention the
he was a bully and a thug. And I think he lives in
as your
Australia now.
as your legal advisors. I suggest we don't go into the
The name and
people
shame.
who are less salubrious members of the.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Listen. We can't do these conversations without at least alluding to some negative. It wasn't. We're all part of OJA, the St. John's
Sure.
College community, the group, the Facebook group that I set up, because we love St. John's. We get on with a lot of people that went there. We have something in common with all of them. But there are always going to be times that maybe John's legal advice will be needed, but where we do need to sort of touch upon certain things and certain people, because it's something which I'll talk about a little later, because your year had some fucking nightmares as well there.
Yeah.
But going back to the who's the housemaster in Nash?
It was Cliff all the way.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And this
He
headmaster, was
saved
it?
my life. If it wasn't for Cliff Mijda, I would have been expelled at least 3 times.
If Mr. Ridgely had his way, I'd have been expelled 5 times.
Yeah. I mean, he saved my bacon, and unfairly, I think he was disliked intensely by so many guys right through. But man, if it wasn't for Cliff and Madeleine, I would have been toast.
I think
They're great servants of the school, though.
I don't dispute that I didn't get on with him. In part my issue, but also I think something which I'd like to chat about. One of the more serious issues, or that I'd like to bring up in a little later, is about sort of how St. John's has probably morphed since then, in the way that they deal with boys. But
so I had Tacky Wilcock was the housemaster, and then Mike Edmonds was the. I'm sure Paul. Was Paul in your year?
Yes.
Paul Edmonds.
Yeah, a quiet guy, but a really nice guy.
Yeah, really nice guy. Mike was a hell of a nice guy.
Lovely man.
Yeah. But I think the experience, Pete, was vastly different in the day boy houses in terms of fagging. I mean, we used to go in and we used to make those toast in at break. And I mean, I remember running around the Clark Quad waving pieces of toast to try and cool them down, because the head boy had arrived at the Hill Prefect common room to have tea and toast, and he liked his toast slightly cooler than it came from the toaster.
We in the morning we had to come in and bring whoever you were fagging for their tea and their toast in bed, and then make sure all their kit was ready for the day, whether it be for the sport, their boots were shined, they had all their kit packed in one thing, their clothes for the day. And then in winter, you'd have to go down to the damn bathrooms, you're freezing cold, and sit on the crapper for them and warm up the seat. So the poor little diddums wouldn't freeze his little pecker off. I mean, you would sit there like, and then it'd be like stall number 1 was his stall, and stall number 2 was the next guy's, and 3. And I mean, it was ridiculous in hindsight. But
Pete, did you guys have personal fagging? Because I mean, theoretically, personal fagging had been abolished.
Yeah, correct.
When we got there.
Still did.
Yeah, I did as well.
But I mean, my boot matriculated 81, and I mean, he had a tractor tire that he'd cut out that he used to wear in his pants to school, because he just used to get jacked by the prefects, like by the matrics every day. Yeah. I mean, he was a naughty shit. He used to go to the Radiant Beer Hall on his bike at break.
Yeah,
if his stories are to believe.
I came in Standard 7. We'd been in Australia for a few years and then come back to South Africa.
Oh, right.
I came in Standard 7.
Yeah.
And, Nick Tannenberger had I think it was Nick who reminded me. He said the first time I sort of clocked you was when I walked into history class late with a bag over my shoulder, chewing gum, and walked in and went g'day to the master. I can't remember who the master was.
Paulie.
G'day.
And it was the classroom directly opposite the Nash entryway. It was that classroom.
Those were the history classrooms.
Yeah. And
who was that? Was that Lindsay Owen? Was Lindsay Owen a history teacher?
Come yet. He only came in Standard 7.
Yeah.
In our year, Standard 7 or 8 even. Maybe 8.
Yeah, but I mean, if Paul was in Standard 7, it could have been him.
Yeah, I don't think it was. It was I think it was a guy that left a couple of years later.
Mr. Barnes was there for remove, and then he left, I think, halfway through Standard 7 to go and run in Red Hill.
can't remember. It'll come back to me. But I was the only standard 7 to have to do fagging in my year.
Oh, because you'd missed it.
Yeah,
They
I
weren't
missed
having
it,
any of that.
and I gave the wrong person lip because I didn't know that he was the wrong person, and it was 80, so whatever matriculated 85 was Craig Henson.
Yes, not the right
Yeah,
guy.
that was the wrong person.
That was the schoolboy era.
One of the wrong people.
Of note.
Yeah.
I gave him some lip because I didn't know who he was, and I said, I'm not going to get your stuff, fuck you. And that was a silly mistake. He gave me a few claps, and then I was running around making his toast, all the same things that you guys had to do. But after I'd sort of been broken in, he was actually a lacquer oak.
He was a great guy. He was very nice.
Yeah.
I
played rugby with him.
Shit, but
listen, I was in the same rugby team as him, and I was scared of him.
He fucked me up once and then jacked me a few
85,
times.
he played wing.
Yeah, he played wing. Yeah. Crazy guy. But he was a lacquer oak. There was one time where the way that the fagging system, I think, was meant to be done was I'd lied to, I think it was Myron Mentis or something else. He wasn't in our house, so I didn't give a shit.
Clark.
And he said, "Go and get my cricket stuff." And he was out on the Mitchell field, and I just walked away. I just didn't bother. And so I said, "I've got to do some stuff for Craig Henson." And he's like, "So you went." So then I get a call from a remove came and got me. They want you up in the Nash common room. So I went up to the Nash common room, and sitting next to Craig Henson was Myron Mentis. And I was just like, fuck.
It doesn't sound like Myron, though. Myron was so chilled out.
No, it doesn't. Myron was a very chilled out.
Yeah, I was. But I think I gave him a bit of lip.
Yeah.
But then there was another guy who wanted to. I think I can't remember who it was.
Myron was our year.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
He seemed older though.
No, well, in
he was going bald.
In standard 5, he had peaked too early. He was at full size. He never grew from then on.
Yeah.
So in remove it was great in the rugby, and then over time he then left rugby. I think he stopped playing rugby in standard 8. Hey, John?
No. He played first team rugby. Played centre.
He did play. Okay,
yeah.
Right through.
Played in the centre with Carl.
Fully grown in standard 5.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it was quite funny. We went to the Addo Elephant Park a couple of years ago, and they'd introduced Kruger elephants there to try and improve the genetics. So you've got all these like little Addo elephants and this massive freaking Kruger elephant. And I said to my kids, "That's Myron Mentis." Because most people came up to like his chest in standard 5 or
funny.
He was massive, and he never grew. But he was a good sportsman.
He was good
cricketer.
Remember Popper?
Yeah,
Tony.
Yeah, he was in my year.
But Tony's tall.
Yeah, he must be 6'6", 6'7", maybe.
Yeah.
But he was like that when he was 14, 15. It was just ridiculous.
Crazy. But I mean, Paulie, you talk about remove. The other thing that was quite interesting for us was that you got that influx from guys from other schools. And we had a mass defection from St. David's.
Yeah.
So we had Porky, we had Garth, we had Michele Gersi and Laurent Mouget. It was just those 4. I thought there were 5, but it was just those 4.
Yeah.
All really good sportsmen, and they all came across from St. David's, which meant every time we played St. David's, it was like freaking war.
Right.
It was, because they were so anti these guys that had. And the rivalry between St. David's and St. John's is similar to the rivalry between Kes and St. John's, in that there's like one victory every 20 years.
John, did you mention Porky Heifer in that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, so yeah.
Porky, Moose, Michele, and Garth.
That's it. Yeah, that was the team. All good, great sportsmen, all round, all of them.
So, Pete, you mentioned a little earlier your brother.
Yeah.
Because your brother was as you were, an excellent sportsman. And Were there any positive connotations, or was it mostly negative that you were the younger brother of
No, it
this?
was only negative. So I know, like, you guys are great fans of Grant
Yeah,
McKenzie.
yeah,
I detested him. He was, as far as I'm concerned, that taxi could have taken him out. He used to take great glee in when he used to take the roll call for lunch, and he'd call my name, and I'd go Adsum, and then he'd go, "Why can't you be more like your brother?"
yes.
I mean, he repeats it in front of everyone. Everyone would be like, "Ha ha 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 ha." It was just so belittling. He just belittled, and I'd never had him as a teacher for for anything right
Yeah.
through college, but he took great glee in hammering me. And from what I don't know,
So
but
Pete, on this sort of this little fun social little channel thing that we're doing, I want people not to sit on the fence. Um,
no, don't worry. All the way.
Tell us how
tell
you
us,
really
tell us
feel,
how you
Pete.
feel, mate.
Trust me, I will. Ask the question, I will answer.
Um, yeah, no, yeah. I think it's weird, isn't it? We are poles apart because Mr. Midgley hated me. I didn't like him. Um, I think it was a product of the system at the time. But Grant Mackers loved me.
Yeah. Interesting,
And
isn't it?
yeah,
Complete
and
opposites.
yeah, um,
You guys just had problems. I don't think I disliked any teacher or any teacher disliked me.
Well,
So
that's why you became Wolfsian,
yeah,
whoops,
exactly.
yeah.
because you
Yeah,
sucked up. We didn't.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know. That's probably that was it.
yeah. Geez,
I
looking
don't
back,
remember an intense dislike of.
I
Yeah,
was
sorry.
I was immature and I was brash and I was arrogant
Yeah.
um, and and it was a system that was designed, I think, from historical terms to be combative to people who didn't toe the line, and
Conform.
they didn't
Yeah.
try to mold you in if you didn't immediately um, sort of conform. Then there wasn't like a mentoring, there wasn't like a sort of which I imagine is more like what they do these days.
Yeah. More like a big brother sort of scenario where someone.
Yeah, they say, what's the issue? Why are you acting out, rather than
Yeah.
you're
No,
acting out,
sure.
okay, you're going to get
That,
So
jacked.
I mean, the guys actually have formal mentors.
Yeah,
that's
that's what I
So
amazing.
mean.
each matric gets a remove, and then and they engage with them throughout the year. Um, and I mean, look, obviously you get some guys that are absolute losers at it, and you get other guys that take it really seriously. But I think both my boys took it. They certainly, I think, Gav had a really good mentor. But yeah, Tim's guy was clueless.
Did they have to do the inheritance house, or did they get an upgrade into Nash?
So the system's quite interesting. So my dad was in Hill,
Yeah,
but when you obviously when he was there, it was a boarding house. My
Yeah.
dad boarded from grade 2. His
right.
folks lived in Greenside. And he boarded.
Jesus.
So my grandfather was a real old Scottish gentleman. So he believed his son needed to go to boarding school. So he was in Hill. And then when my brother got there, my eldest brother matriculated at 76, so he couldn't go into Hill because he was a day boy. So he went. He was in Alston, ended up head of Alston, and then when my middle brother came, they, I think he was standard. He was removed when they changed it, and they gave him the option. So he then went into Hill. I went into Hill, and then my boys went into Hill. Although Tim, because there's such a pressure on boarding at St. John's now,
Yeah.
that there was no room for him in Hill. He only started boarding from upper 4. So he actually boarded in Clayton, but he stayed in Hill. So Interhouse stuff he was in Hill, but he boarded in Clayton.
You must have been popular, eh? They
Yeah,
would
but
never have
Bones,
flown in our day. They would have been the end.
no, it wouldn't.
Yeah,
Look, it wouldn't. But to be fair, it wouldn't have flown in Nash either. I don't think.
No, anyhow.
Hillbillies are like that. Um,
yeah, Yeah, blood is blood, man. Blood is blood.
Rednecks are.
You're either in or you're out.
Yeah,
There's no
100%.
defense here. If you're
It's
sleeping in the
no
place,
come here.
working in the
Yeah.
place.
So true. I remember the last Standard 7, 86 was the last year that they had. Remember that Interhouse rugby?
No.
And it was,
No, we never
Yeah,
used to play.
yeah, it was my first year there. We had it. It was Interhouse rugby, and they banned it because so many Oaks got injured. It was
Murdered each other. I'm sure.
absolutely murdered each
We
other.
never played inter-house rugby.
no,
Pete, I don't remember playing inter-house rugby.
definitely not.
I didn't play by myself. I do that later.
Yeah, no, we will. I was in Nash with you, Paul, and I can say that that's not true. You did
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just old age with the Oaks. But
It might have been in 87 and 88 that they forgot how bad it was and
yeah,
then reintroduced it. Thought that maybe this isn't such a bad idea.
Yeah, because no, we definitely didn't play interhouse rugby for sure.
yeah, it was
And
bad.
and it would have been murder because most of the rugby team was Clayton and Nash.
Yeah,
I mean, you in our year it would have been like, think of the team in Clayton would have been Paddy, Barbs, Chalmers, and a few others. Then in Garth, who else was in Clayton? And then from Nash was Joubert, Ferguson, Mouget. I mean, it would have been absolute chaos.
yeah.
Was Ferguson in Nash?
Yeah, he
He was
came
in
to.
Clark, wasn't he?
He was originally, but he came to Nash in 9 and matric because he boarded for a
Okay.
while.
His dad must have paid a fortune to get him into Nash.
Well, no, that's a whole other story, and we probably don't want to talk about it on here because it's
Oh,
really.
yes.
There was an incident that had to put him into boarding house.
I listen. There were incidents in every year. So I've got this theory which I sort of was thinking about from, remember that movie in '89, The Dead Poets Society?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the scene, the Carpe Diem scene, where he does that weird whispering, and they're looking at the old photos. Like Oaks are looking at our photo now, hanging up our years with the same, like, how old are these Oaks? And you watch that movie, which was brilliant, and the casting was great, and the writing was great because it really reflected the community within each year. And I've got this sort of theory that every year has the same makeup. You've got the jocks, you've got the sportsmen, you've got the academics, you've got the academic sportsmen, you've got the comedians, you've got the bullies, you've got the comedians. And so, like in my year, Guy Worthington was like the comedian. It was, he was just
Funny as hell. Brilliant.
funny as fuck. And he could literally say exactly the same words as you, and it would be funny. Whereas you would say it and it wasn't funny.
Who was our comedian, Pete? Was that Gopher?
Gopher was one of them for sure. Yeah, he was really funny. There were a few.
Nathan Gogol. Yeah.
I played too much of the class clown as well myself, but that didn't help me too much. I peaked too early with that one.
So who are the Casanovas? Garth Ritchie?
Garth was one for sure.
Sometimes there's some
Myra?
dark horses. You don't think that they're going to be popular with the girls, but they are.
Yeah, I was an early starter at the end of Remove. So I was a goer. There were a few guys. Myron.
Houston Michele?
No, not Moose so much. Michele for sure. Definitely Garth. Some great stories there we could tell of some of the parties we had.
Yeah.
Some of the gatherings at Moose's house, John? We shouldn't discuss those, maybe.
Did you have to sign an NDA when you left?
Well, let me tell you, if that came, I think they would expel us in abstention now, just for what we did.
Can you imagine if we had smartphones back then?
Oh God, no! We'd be dead. None of us would.
Yeah, we'd all been expelled, or killed, or arrested, or.
No, but I mean, Paul, you talk about that. I mean, I remember Saturday evenings, Porky and I hitchhiking around Joburg from party to party.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to. And I mean, stealing cars from Moose's old man and then breaking down and having to push
Breadway.
it from Michele's house in Bompus Road to Moose's house in Houghton Drive. And literally at 5 as the sun was coming up, pushing it up like Munro Drive to try. I
Well,
mean,
better still,
you can't do that shit these days.
I mean, that little Suzuki Breadway, remember, it was like so narrow and would be packed full. And if you went around the corner too fast, it fell over. It fell over sideways a few times. And Oaks would bail out and put it back on its wheels, jump back in, and off we'd go. And then the one time Gopher had come back, it was actually from a Michele party. And he had a couple of beers too many. This is like standard 8. And he fell asleep on close to where that Bimbo's was in Kingsmead. What's that road? Orange. Oxford Road. In the flower bed, he fell asleep. The cops got him there, put him in the back of the car, let the tire go, and took him for a little joyride while they did rounds through Soweto. And now he's trying to get back to the boarding house so he doesn't get bust. And the cops drop him off outside the school like at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he wasn't at roll call. He was in such cock for that.
Our ringleader for that was Greg Dock.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He would come and pick me up. I only started nicking my parents' cars when I was sort of standard 9 matric, but Greg was doing it like standard 7, standard 8.
I was the same, standard 7.
Yeah,
standard 7.
Where were the bars? Which were the bars? Because back then, I assume it's changed, but the authorities, I always sort of think that we lived in our little bubble in the best time to be a South African white straight boy, and totally selfishly disregarding all the other demographics.
Yeah,
for that demographic, the police didn't give a shit about drinking in bars underage. But, I mean, we were going into spats. We would get in at 14, 15. The girls were getting in at 13.
Yeah.
But and I mean, Paul, I was looking, I thought I was looking really mature, and I look at photos. I mean, I looked about 7.
I think about it, and I think if I'm
these bounces.
But think about this. I'm thinking, like, I was thinking the other day, standing in a bar. Can you imagine standing in a bar and next to you there's a 13-year-old girl ordering a vodka and tonic, and her date, ordering a couple of beers? I mean, it would just be bonkers.
Yeah.
So we had the Oxbox. We used to go to the Oxbox a bit.
Yeah.
Balalaika.
Yeah.
The Pullman in Rivonia Road, the old Holiday Inn, which was a train carriage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct.
Late night owls at school, or was it?
No, that would have been probably matric for me, so university for you guys.
Yeah.
Then there was also the nightclub. So what was it?
Napoli.
No, Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
Mandy's, where everyone used to bloom and huff and puff at Mandy's.
Idols.
Where?
Idols, yeah.
Idols,
yeah. But no, Hillbrow was safe in those days. You could also go hang out there, and it wasn't a problem. The Chelsea
Underground.
Yeah, you could go.
The main one for us in 9 matric was it was just Reds.
Oh yes, I think that was more of a varsity draw for us. It was quite far. I mean, in those days, obviously there was no Uber, and Chris Vessels lived in Rivonia, and yes, my folks were so grumpy if I wanted to go and visit him at his house, and it was like, we had to have a trip to the country.
Yeah,
and I mean that was he lived in Benmore.
Yeah.
So the reason why
we were in Houghton.
The reason why we could get into Reds was because the old boy, Little John, was the backer at the door.
Yeah.
John Illingham, I think.
That's it, John Illingham. And he was such a cool guy. He was like, "Hey, John," he'd be like, "Hey, come on in." And you come, you're like 14 years old,
Yeah.
And no one would dare touch you in there for try and bliksem you because he would just sort it out, chop.
Yeah, he wasn't bad. Okay, he had a big reputation. I'm sure he did some interesting stuff. But I trained with him at the gym that used to be the Jewish Guild.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they sold that.
That was, what was it? Sports Connection.
Yeah,
Wasn't it called the Sports Connection in off Rivonia Road?
yeah. I trained with him for a few months, one after school, but yeah, I was there for a couple of. It was one fight where he was, he had two guys in headlocks, one under each arm. He was just squeezing the pips out of them, and then drags them outside and throws them out. You know, it was.
My funniest thing ever that ever happened was I went to go to what was the place called in Santon, in the
Spats,
actual shopping centre?
not spats.
Spats, not
Spats.
Spats.
Spats, that's it. Rob Joubert was the bouncer at Spats after school, and he was a South African powerlifter champion at the time.
Yeah.
And man, he had a mean ass temper. I remember I'm walking up to the door to walk in, and next thing this guy just comes flying right past me into that like low reflecting pool outside.
Yeah.
I put my head around the door. I'm like, Joe, what's going on? He says, no, that guy's out. I said, Joe's out for the count. The oak was out cold in the water. I was like, well, I think I better come in.
One in, one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Which was the school? Which was the girls' school? Because every year seemed to have a focus.
Rodine.
Was it
Well,
Rodine?
Yeah, with
Sydney
Brody,
School.
Kingsmead, St. Mary's.
So ours was sort of St. Mary's, Kingsmead was more.
Yeah, I was an equal opportunist. It didn't matter. Even Bryanston High didn't matter.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I remember breaking into Kingsmead and a couple of times, and there was a girl called Mandy Holmes who I was deeply in love with for a while. And
for about 10 minutes.
No, there were a few 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And she liked me when I was with someone else, and I liked her a lot more when she was with someone else. And but there were so many pretty girls back in Rodine and Kingsmead and St. Mary's and Brescia, and
I think they're even better now. I mean, I remember my dad always telling me, he's like, they didn't have girls like this when I was your age, and I was like, yeah, whatever, Dad. Now I look around and I'm like, holy smokes, this girl's 15 or 16. I can't believe it. She looks like a grown woman. So I don't know what's happened in time, but maybe it's just we're getting old.
Yeah, maybe. I just think the girls in our year just like Rodine, my year. So they didn't date us because they were dating you guys. That year was just, I mean, Molinos, O'Hagan, Peterson, Gail, what was her name?
Byron went out with Nicole, didn't he? Nicole Peterson.
No, Bob's did.
Did he?
Okay. Bob's did a dinner party with her. And
okay.
Her and Corinne were at the dinner
Jenkins, party. Julia Joubert,
Kate and Tracy Huggett.
Yeah.
Nikki Bailey, Radio
Nikki
Bailey.
Stunning. Yeah. So they were way out of our league because they were our age.
I'm still mates with Nikki.
Yeah.
I still see Nikki.
Fabulous.
Every now and then. Wonderful woman, yeah.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, I see Kerry O'Hagan around. She married Harold Jones, Hacky Jones. So yeah, see quite a few of them. The Molinos has moved on to Anthony and Newbury. They moved on to Cape Town.
Did they?
So yeah, but yeah, they were a great bunch of girls.
Yeah. Mandy passed away. She was 21, eh?
Who was that?
Mandy Holmes. She passed away.
Okay.
She was 21.
I don't remember her either.
She was a slip of a girl, tiny, looked like an elfin, short hair,
yeah,
like Winona Ryder sort of thing, and yeah, she had lung cancer.
How many of your year passed away, Paul?
I think 2. Laurent Perimort, and I think there's one other. It'll come to me. But I think 2, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few, hey, Pete?
Yeah, we've got 3.
No, it's more than 3.
There's
definitely more than
Funky.
Freynook,
that's
Cook.
right. So Cook, that's
Cook.
Yeah.
David Hall.
5, yeah.
That's off the top of my head. That's what we know. I mean, does anyone know where Pora is?
Australia.
Is it?
But yeah, I don't think he wants to be reconnected
No.
any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Shane, he,
there's a few
he
guys
went
like
through
that in my area
he
as
went
well.
through a really bad time when his folks got divorced, and then he went from like being a straight A student to being the bottom of the bottom. And he was just such a problem at school.
Pora, straight A student.
In the prep, he was.
Maybe in the prep, not in the
Yeah.
college.
No, well, in Standard 6 is when his folks got divorced, and that's when the wheels came off his chariot.
What?
Yeah.
So you brought up Gavin as one of the people who sadly passed away.
Yeah.
He
But
was John's best friend.
who's?
He was Johnny Mac's best friend.
Yeah, he was a. So your year was your year had some of the nice folks and some of the biggest.
Hey, it's
not so nice folks.
asshole.
Yeah. And
Did you? I mean, I've heard the stories, but I mean, it was weird at school. Look, I mean, I think a lot of the guys, a lot of the guys that I've heard complaints about were like my best mates.
Yeah.
So it was, it was quite surprising for me. I didn't realize that they were so tough on the youngsters.
so you were a
Usually
bit
have
like
a bad
Harvey
radar.
Weinstein's brother, huh?
Sorry, Paul.
You're a bit like Harvey Weinstein's brother.
No, didn't know anything.
Just
You know,
didn't
it's
know
complete
anything. Didn't see
typical
anything. Didn't
lawyer.
know anything.
No, nothing. Plead the fifth. No, nothing.
Because John Mac, you and I have chatted about that. The fact that you didn't sort of didn't clock onto that, but yeah, there was some you
Look, I mean sorry, I mean I was going to say that it gave me hell in matric because all these guys were my mates and they're the guys that were causing all the shit with the teachers and
Yeah.
and the guys always saying, listen, you've got to do something about these people. They're a problem for school discipline, and they're your mates. I mean, obviously. So I mean, I was put in a position that there was this constant pressure on both sides, and then your mates say, well, why are you being such a dick?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough.
but yeah,
I was
Tough life.
I was told by IcePick that either I change my circle of friends or I'm expelled. So I changed my circle of friends completely.
because
Standard 9.
Clint, you talked earlier about a couple of guys that you'd want to have, and there's a couple of guys in your year that if I bumped into them, it wouldn't be like bygones handshake. It'd be like I've got no
Yeah,
time.
I would just go to the guy's face. I don't think I would. It wouldn't be a case of like trying to punch the guy or
No,
anything.
no, no. But
I just go to his face and just say, "You were such a wimp at school that you thought it was fun to bully a little kid." I
yeah,
told it to another guy who was in Clayton House, McLaren. He bullied me and Jock Davidson mercilessly, and years ago at a Gaudy day, I cornered old Max, and I just said to him, I said, "You were such a piece of work at school," and I to his face in front of a couple of his mates that were there. Peter Kajewski was with him, and Peter Kajewski was like, and Max was like, didn't know what to say. He was like, he just sort of muttered along and off he went. But I just feel like these guys, they took some people's uh, year and just messed it
yeah,
up.
yeah,
As far as an
Yeah.
overall feel for me in the school, for my career at the school, St. John's was fantastic. I loved the place. And I thrived on just being on the sports and doing that stuff. I sucked at academics because I didn't apply myself to
yeah. You and me both.
ever. Um, so I ended up having to doing the finishing school that everyone did after St. John's, and then it was fine. But I mean, while I was at the school, I had a great time. I wasted so many opportunities in hindsight, but you only learn that when you get older. You
Yeah,
realize,
but I think going back to that, which we come around to a few times, I think it's I don't think my parents got value for money
no, mine didn't either.
because when it was determined by the zeitgeist that I was decent at sport, but a bit of a wise wise ass, a bit of a
Just a bit.
a bit of a challenging guy. So, so my immediately left at the beginning of my matric year and went to became deputy head or
Right.
assistant deputy head.
Second
We got
master.
Habbers.
Yeah.
And Habbers and I had also didn't see eye to eye, and I thought I was smarter than everybody, including the teachers, and
And in some cases we were, believe me.
yeah,
They had no business being teachers.
yeah.
In hindsight, I look at it now and I'm like, how the hell did this guy teach anything?
But you remember those
Mm.
trifold report cards that we got at the end of the term?
Yeah.
I've still got every one of mine.
Oh, I wish I had mine. The last one I got from Habbers that he wrote. He said, I find his condescending and patronizing approach to me both insulting and offensive. and and I was like, I read it and I was like, that's fair enough.
Fair comment.
Fair enough.
On the money.
But what's weird is I reached out to, I had a time of reflection. I went to therapy about 7-8 years ago for a few years, and quite a few positive things came out of it. But one of them was self-reflecting on my responsibility for those years at St. John's, where I wasted a lot of time, I wasted a lot of opportunity, and I think the school held some responsibility for that as well. But it was the time and the nature of the system at the time. And I reached out to Habbers and I apologized. I said I was such a shit. I'm really sorry that it's just I was immature and not in a great place with my family and blah blah blah. And he forgave me and he said, well, I could have done a lot of things differently as well. And so we become mates. And every time I come over to South Africa, we have lunch, we chat.
It's actually interesting to me because you at school you never realized how young those guys actually were.
Yeah.
I mean, they must have been early 20s,
Yeah.
but they were teachers. Or I think Dave was probably about 10 years older than us. No, Dave might have been a bit more. Dave Wilkinson.
No, he was way more older than that because he had kids.
But Habbers, I think Habbers was about 75 that he matriculated.
Yeah, St. John's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early 70s. He'll no doubt correct us, but mid 60s, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was I don't know how I'd segued onto that, but sorry, I got lost there for a second.
I mean, we were the last. Our year, I think, was the last year when we were in remove, where the old sort of backbone of the teachers were retiring. Then, so you had all these old bullies that had been there from the 50s.
Yeah.
Well, Spike taught my dad.
What's that?
Spike taught my dad. Spike Carter taught my dad.
Really?
Yeah, but he kept going forever. He didn't go anywhere for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Spike was around for a while.
He was intimidating.
Tacky was in their 60s. You had Wilcox.
Tacky wasn't there that he wasn't that old.
He was. He is. There's photos of Tacky in the late 60s teaching at the school already as a young man.
Yeah.
So there was some old buddies there that were.
Was Potty Chamberlain there when you were there?
No, he finished in our year, John.
Did he finish in our year?
Yeah,
I mean, he was a legend. He was
a legend.
Potty had been there forever.
I remember the first day I got there, and I had to go. They had that little cubicle right at the end of Clayton Quad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you went and got all your stuff, and I went along there, and it was like something out of a movie. The guy was like, it was like Ollivanders in Harry Potter, where the old guy and he's got all the stuff and he shuffles around, and you go and get your. Yeah, you go there and you get your books, and he says, well, if it's not on the list, you don't get it, and it's like, it was, and then he'd slam the thing shut after you left, and
like the barn door.
Yeah, and then his
Yeah,
little
that
mini.
yeah,
And he used
that
to drive that
stable
mini
door.
like a
Yeah,
madman.
stable
No
door.
guy used to go over the hump sideways because otherwise it would scrape. So you go like this, and most old people drive slowly. He just
Yeah. Whatever happened to him?
Who to Potty?
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think there was an
Never
obituary
heard of him again.
for the
Yeah.
guy.
He was old, man.
He was in his 70s then,
Yeah,
mid 70s, and he had been there he had been at St. John's. You should find this out, Paul, but
yeah,
I'm willing to bet it's the late 50s he came to St. John's.
yeah. That I'd love to, yeah, to get more information like that. Chat to some of the older guys. Um, one of my other favorite teachers, even though she was quite intimidating for a youngster, was Mrs. Grant McKenzie.
Okay, but Paul, on that,
Yeah,
Paul Murray posted the photo, and he calls her Mrs. Davidge Pitts.
I
Yeah,
never
he's
heard that
wrong.
before.
We never knew her as Davidge Pitts.
No,
It's the
I
first
didn't.
time I've ever heard that that she was Davidge Pitts.
No.
Imagine
Obviously,
if
the
he had
staff
known
all knew her.
John, we would have had a field day with that name.
Yeah, yeah.
Davidge Pitts.
Yeah, it would have been endless.
I don't. I.
I got a great story about science in her
Yeah.
class
Tell us. Tell us.
where I was thrown out and jacked by Spike 6, me and Gopher. So Gopher and I had found one of the mother's special devices, and we thought it was fun to bring it to the boarding house. And promptly in her class, we put I'd taken it out of Gopher's bag and I switched the thing on and put it on this wooden desk, and it was bouncing up and down going bzzz. And she turns around and I'm sort of pretending I'm working on the Bunsen burner, and there's this huge white device bouncing along the table, and she just looked up and ran out the room. Next thing, Spike comes in, boy, and he came and he blitzed them, Gopher and I. He gave us the works. And I was never allowed back in her class. That was it.
So who was the hardest? Who was the hardest jacker?
Cliff, by a mile.
Yeah.
By a mile, and accurate. He'd give you 3 or 6 and you'd have 1 strike.
Yeah.
Whereas
Don't say, Paul.
I'd probably say the same. Omani could give a good one. He was a little less accurate. He flayed a bit.
Why was he jacking you? Was he a housemaster?
So he was for about a term. I think it was standard, and it was so funny. I was telling some friends this story, and how this sort of antiquated, barbaric in today's view. Because I have no issue with jacking. It's because McFarlane wanted to get rid of it, and he didn't jack, but he sent a letter home to your parent. You're like, oh, come on, man. I'd rather just
Get
take
it over
6.
and done with.
I'd just rather take 6, because when my mum finds out, it's worse than 6. It's
all the emotional scarring coming with.
when your mum's disappointed in you, I mean, it's not great. And he was our housemaster for about a term, I think, in standard 9 or something like that, standard 8, standard 9, and it must have been standard 7, so 85, because Henson sent me up. I don't know why he didn't jack me himself, but he sent me up from chapel, and all I'd be doing is laughing at someone who'd like passed wind or sort of farted or something, And so he sent me up, and I didn't do anything. So I go up, and it's the whole dance that we had to do. So go up, knock on the door, come in. Hello, Henson sent me up to see you, and you try and dance around a bit about the fact that what he's asked you to. So it's like, okay. He's asked me to say he wants me to jack you. Yeah, he wants me to jack you. He wants you to jack me. And what happened? Okay, well, just 3. So then you have to lift up your blazer, bend over, bend over, 3 jacks. And then afterwards you say thank you.
Yeah.
You say thank you for the discipline. Thank you for the lesson learned.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Oh, so funny. But some of the matrics, jeez, they could jack as well. And they used to use those cut-off hockey sticks.
Not
Yo,
good.
there's
Great.
some weight behind
Not
those,
good.
eh? Yo.
Yeah, not good.
And then your Oaks had a paddle that had holes drilled in it. Your year.
Don't know who wielded that.
That was in the Nash. That was in Nash.
So who was that? Matt Shaw? Were you a prefect, Bones?
God, no.
You would have been,
No.
weren't you?
I was lucky I was even in the school by matric.
Who were your house prefects?
So it was Matt Shaw, Graham Hamilton,
Oh, Hammy, yeah.
Richard Matthews, old E.T.,
What, he was a prefect, yeah.
Guy Paparella.
He wasn't a prefect.
Guy
Was he
was
a
a
prefect?
prefect, yeah.
John,
Just
your
trying to.
sound's gone a little iffy, but
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the bat. Matt might have been the one who had the bat that had the holes drilled in it, but he did it more.
Of that lot, it sounds like he would be the only one that might have. But Matt wasn't a.
No, he wasn't. He
was.
did it. I remember him doing it to a few guys, but like jacking them. But he always did it like it was more fun. He was very liked. He was always very liked,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
bullied.
He was a gentle guy.
Anyone. Yeah, he was very, very gentle bloke. He was a lekker oak.
Yeah, there were a couple of incidents, weren't there, where a couple of guys went a bit far. There was, I think, when I was in Senate 8. So you were the guy. There was a guy. It was usually guys who weren't like a couple of your guys, were not great, but there were a couple of incidents where guys took it too far, and it was usually matrics who were nobodies.
No one.
Oh, yeah.
It was usually they were trying to like make up for something. I don't know, but and and that's when it's. I often find that, I think I had reasonable self-awareness to one extent that I'd look around and I'd say, why the hell would parents send you to this school? Because St. John's was not a school.
I never thought that once.
Yeah, I'd look at certain Oaks who were just not designed for St. John's at the time.
No, definitely. There were guys that just couldn't cut it. They were just too soft or didn't have.
Yeah.
What
And
it
through
took.
no fault of their own, it was it was the fault of the system, the school, and everything else. And it was just, and some of those are the Oaks who want nothing to do with it. They were not part of the OJ, and I don't blame them.
I mean, there's some people say they, absolutely hated St. John's. It was absolute nightmare for them. It gave them nothing.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. I only once in all the years I was at school, and it only happened in standard 8. I was getting bullied by a matric guy who at night would lean over his cubicle wall because they had 2 cubicles and then there were like 6 beds in each little pod. He'd lean over his cubicle wall at night and throw a dart at me.
Easy.
Dart that you play darts with.
Yeah.
And eventually I was so terrified. He was such a little weasel. He was a skinny nobody, as Paul says, that I eventually, one Sunday, my parents were like, okay, you got to get ready. We got to go to school, got to drop you off for chapel. I just said, no, I'm not going back to St. John's. I don't want to go back. Now, eventually, my father got it out of me what it was about.
But he went off.
And he called Cliff. And Cliff said, don't worry, the guy won't even be in Nash by the time he comes out of chapel on Sunday.
Really?
And came out of chapel on Sunday, and the guy was gone. They packed up his whole cubicle. He was gone. They moved him to Clayton. And he was on the line of getting expelled. But I had holes in me. This guy I'd be sleeping and he'd throw a bloody dart at me in the middle of the night.
I mean that's I didn't have a problem with
Nash for you, Paul.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
100%. I didn't have a problem with the what today people would say would be brutality or physicality, because there were guardrails, and the guardrails were mostly by the boys themselves. It was now and again Oaks would go outside the guardrails, and that's when it became a bit of an issue. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Had no issue with giving lip to Henson and getting the snot slapped out of me. Had no issue with that, or getting jacked or anything like that. It's incidents like Pete's, sort of regaling us with that that were out of bounds.
But you know what's interesting? After I finished my trick, I got a call out of the blue. This guy played squash. He called me at my house and he said he wanted to have a game of squash with me. And I thought, this guy wants to probably blitzen me. So I thought, no, I'm going to show up. I got there. We didn't play squash. He basically got on his knees and he just apologized. He said, and he was in tears. That's how much it affected him. Afterwards, he realized years later, obviously, that he had been really. And I thought, wow, it showed a lot of character on his part.
Yeah, 100%.
To step forward. And I mean, he was completely exposed. He wasn't like a tough guy about it. He was literally in tears. So
yeah, 100%. I think
he just
that's
wanted
great.
to.
I think a lot of those bullies, once they left school, I mean, you meet them now. I mean, some might be chops, but probably, as many of them are just normal guys.
Yeah,
it was just the circumstances.
Yeah, no, 100%. So anyway, but there it is. Listen, how long is this call going to go on for?
Let's do another 5-10 minutes.
Okay, because I've got to head out here by like in about 20 minutes.
Okay, let's aim for 10 more minutes. So who was favorite teacher?
Cliff was mine.
So he
gave me geography.
We had a biology teacher, Dr. Connie Anderson.
I remember her.
Man,
American
she was
Canadian, American.
Yeah, American. Just as a teacher, she was just phenomenal. And I mean, I generally had a good relationship. I mean, I enjoyed Grant Mackers. I enjoyed his classes. Teddy Lester as a history teacher. That's another one of the old blokes.
Yeah.
He also taught my dad. He also taught my dad in the 50s. I mean, I reckon that's from my side. But there were some real characters.
Hang on 1 sec. I might be getting a delivery. Give me 1 sec. Perfect time.
I've never seen Joe Rogan or Graham Norton get a delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. Deadly Organ was my biology teacher right through school. And Willie, my math teacher right through.
Yeah, so I had Rangers was my maths teacher.
Yeah, and Willie, I'm more in 1 year after matric in math than I learned in 5 years with Willie. We somehow got into lessons and everyone, they'd start their bullshit session. It was like, no, let's do a bully session with Willie. And he'd go on a tangent and and then at the end, he'd be like, okay, we'll learn this formula. This is what we were supposed to do today. And I'd be like, what's a formula? Never bothered. And I learned nothing. I learned more in 1 year. I'm serious, John. I went from bloody in an E or an
Was that a demo?
No, I went to Eden College.
Okay.
And I learned more in 1 year, and I got a C for math from being an F, basically. So I knew I wasn't stupid. It was the same across all my grades. I went up like 30% on all my grades.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, it's a different school today. I mean, the academic standards there.
So that was going to be my last
phenomenal.
questions. What would you have changed from then for now? It might already have been changed.
It's already been done, I think. I think they've got incredible teachers at the school now. You've got to be so qualified to even teach there, I think. I mean, I go back to the prep, starting at the prep. I mean, half our teachers in the prep were veterans of the Rhodesian War. Most of them had bloody PTSD.
Yeah.
We had Mr. Hayes, Mr. Johnson. I mean, if you smashed your hand on the desk, which we often used to do, the guys would be like freaking out. Same with old Drinkwater. Drinkwater was the sergeant major in the World War II.
Jesus, we used to give him sticker.
Non-stop. Oh, Puza Amanzi, we used to smash the desks, and the poor oak would be, by the time we left the class, I think the oak had to go back and have a drink somewhere because we were horrible monsters.
Yeah, we were horrible. Do you remember and I'll go back to my question with you, John. Um, do you remember the Christmas carols?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember? You remember when with Mr. Murr?
The
Myrrh.
service of the 9 readings.
Yeah. And there would be myrrh, incense, and myrrh.
And everyone was prepared. Everyone told everyone this is going to happen and screamed it. And then Spike Carter just went off.
But-
That was fun. John, favorite? You were saying your favorite teachers. There was a couple there.
Yeah. So, and I'm interested because a lot of people's favorite teacher was Bubs Curran.
I like
I never,
Bubs.
But he never taught me. I mean, he was a hell of a nice guy, but
yeah,
never had him as a teacher.
Yeah, Bubs, and both Maccas for me.
interesting.
Yeah.
But I
Look, and I mean,
Mrs. Grant Mackenzie liked me because I was brutal to her. I put one of the stories that I did, because that classroom was so far on the other end,
yeah,
and I remember putting and she used to let us out 5 minutes early so she could walk through without being disturbed by having boys in the corridors and get to the
yeah.
staff common room. So I put the clock forward a couple of times so that we got out like 50. So she's sitting there in the common room for like 20 minutes, wondering what's going on. And she came in after I did it for 5, and then to 10, and next day, next week I pushed it to 20 to see how far I could push it. And then when it was 20, she clocked and she came and she, forgive the pun, and then she walked into the next science classroom and said, "Phillips, leave my clock alone."
She knew exactly who it was.
It's just like
Fun.
Alex, this has been great. There's a couple of things from cover those already. I hope that it's been okay for you guys. I know there was a little bit of nervousness.
No,
And I think it was.
I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but
yeah, me neither.
yeah,
I had no idea.
like having a bit of a Bullies and a bit of a reminisce.
I think it gives, for people who weren't in the 80s, who might be in the 70s, they'll see some things that are similar, some are different. Folks in the 90s, noughties, teens, they're going to think, fuck, it's different school.
It was.
I mean, Paul, we had Saturday school when we started
Yeah.
in
That
Recollections.
finished the year before I came, yeah.
Yeah.
So my favorite was Saturdays. You first had church on Saturday morning as a boarder. Then you had classes. Then you had to go do sport. Then you'd get home at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, only to have to go back to the school for church on Sunday night to start all over again.
Where did your parents live, Clint?
We lived in Florida.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not that far, but in rush hour traffic, it could take you an hour each way, and we all did sport. Paul and I just did sport all the time, and it just made total sense to do it. But and people always ask me, it's like, so you're not into church and that anymore? I said, no, I think that was beaten out of me, man. Yeah. It was 7 days a week for 7 years, nearly.
Any last reflections, like favorite moment, funniest moment, funniest?
I think we've covered a lot of it. It's actually fun to reminisce.
One of my favorite things, I think, that I love doing every year at St. John's was when we did the Interhouse competition through the swimming pool and climbing the walls. And
that was great. They don't do that anymore. Through the shooting range. Remember, we used
to range
crawl.
thing.
Yeah. The last time I did shooting before they closed it, I got 0 because one of the
call you ray gun.
Yeah, one of the oaks next to me changed the sights. Like, they distracted me, and I was looking over there and changed the sights for like 400 meters. So I'm like shooting up here like this.
What was that thing called, Pete?
Yeah, what was it called? It's not tabloids.
We used to do it at night. It used to be at night.
It was great.
And
we nearly lost Matthews the one year because he got stuck with the tire at the bottom of the pool. So we had to dive in after him to go get him. We left the tire. We had to ET back up.
I got jacked by a matric in standard 7 because I only got I missed one A tabloid. I got all the others like A's, or I can't remember how they were judged, but I got all of the other ones, all the best that they could be. And I got a B or whatever it was. And I got jacked for that.
I'm surprised, Paul, that you don't hold the 100-meter record at the school still. I mean,
No,
you were so damn fast.
Julian was faster than me.
Julian?
Andrew Julian.
Wow.
Yeah, but none of you were faster than Stephen Clark.
Yeah,
no, not in remove.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there in remove, eh?
I
I
didn't get colours or honours, eh? You know why?
What for?
Good enough.
No.
You had to
No,
be.
but I mean,
it was
exactly.
It was somebody, and it was somebody that wouldn't give it the nod.
No. What it is, I think, Paul. I mean, I played squash for Transvaal for 6 years, provincial level squash. I think I got my colours in standard 8. I got my honours in standard 9. But now you go to the school and you look, and you got kids with academic honours, coming down here, and then they got honours.
No, because they get
standards.
an honours blazer. They get an honours blazer for academics.
Yeah,
So
no,
there's
that's
no
awesome.
cultural tie. There's no academic tie. You get a blazer. You
No,
get
I think that's great,
your
and that's
chappy wrapper.
Yeah, I've got no issue with having the less sort of jock status.
yeah. No, I think that's fabulous, and that's what
it is something that rankled with me for the last 30 years.
Get over it, Paulie.
No, you had to be provincial standard in those days, and now
not for colours, for honours.
No, not for colours. But yeah, I mean for rugby, I think we had 2 guys get honours in rugby in the 80s.
Yeah, it was Garth
and it was
Chalmers
and
Rob Walker.
Chalmers as well.
No, not Bruce might have as well.
Bruce did, yeah.
But Rob Walker, I think, got it in 81. He played Craven Week as well. We didn't have many Craven Week players.
No, in our year, I mean, Bruce was the most sporting. He had honours for 3 things. He had it for swimming, water polo, and rugby.
Yeah.
And
rugby,
if there was life saving, he would have had that too, because he was a springbuck at high school in 3 of those events.
Yeah.
Alex, this has been fun. I hope that it's been all right, and that
it's good.
Paulie, well done. Good initiative.
Yeah, and then I think make sure you edited it nicely. Don't think profanity will fly too well for some of the people out there.
I'll put on a warning. I'll run it past the legal department, and John. And
take all the irrelevant stuff out, and you'll have probably a nice 2-3 minute podcast.
Well, I think there was a flow there. I don't know. The thing is, I'm not an editor. I'll have to build up my skills in that regard. So if it goes, if there's an interest, maybe we can get it done a bit better, and I can do it in a recording studio, that sort of thing. But let's see if anybody.
You need to work on your lighting, Paul.
What's that?
Yeah. You need to work on your lighting.
Yeah, you look like you're in a smoky bar.
I wish. But
Paul, what's the weather like in the UK at the moment?
Oh, mate, this place is not great.
We're coming over on Sunday.
Are you?
Yeah.
A month.
No, so we're just going 2 weeks. We're doing the Highlands for Christmas and Hogmanay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that'll be good.
Well, yeah, it's even more miserable 150 miles north, I can tell you.
We're going to have a temperature delta of about 50 degrees between Kruger and the Isle of Skye.
Alex, what we can do, maybe in 6 months, we can do another one, get a couple of other guys in, mix it up, so we get different stories, different memories, that sort of thing. I'm going to try and get a few other people from different years, and then let's see if there's any interest.
Give it a wind.
Stuart Kelly would have been a good one to have in this chat, because Herc said he's got some great stories of us in Nash.
Yeah, I bet. There's endless
but
stories.
What about getting Wellington on?
Yeah.
Guy.
Hey, guys, sort of.
Not Wellington.
Guys a bit.
No. I said Wellington. Wellington. Yeah. Guy Wellington. Yeah.
You've got to have him sober. That's the bloody problem. The Oaks pissed all the time.
No. Pete, legal
Uh,
department,
I don't know if
compliance.
that's the case, but
no,
anyway.
it's going to be edited, yeah.
I'm going to stop recording now, but I just want to say thanks, guys, and appreciate you being the guinea pigs.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Lekker.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Paulie.
much.
Thanks for the invite.